Good evening, Whakalofa and welcome to tonight's bulletin of BCN News. Leading the news tonight on the occasion of the 47th anniversary of self-government, the highlight of the Constitution celebrations is the flag-raising ceremony. And at the flag-raising ceremony, the highlight will have to be the honours list. And this year, a long-serving politician, 2 former teachers and a head of education department, women community leaders and a sportsperson and sports administrator made the list. Here's more from the 47th flag-raising ceremony. The Speaker, Honourable Hima Takelesi, explained the location for this year's flag-raising ceremony was to return to the place where the first flag-raising ceremony was held, now the Commercial Centre in central Alofi. The crowd gathered and sat patiently under the cool canopy of marquees, awaiting the arrival of the dignitaries. After the arrival of the Premier Honourable Dalton Tangelangi, the honour of raising the national flag this year was executed flawlessly by Constable Anthony Va Paumale. The Premier's address to the crowd acknowledged the country's elders and the forefathers of the Constitution, whose efforts we enjoy to this day. He paid tribute to former Premier, the late Honourable Frank Manawa-Lui, and former Minister, the late Robert Matua Rex, who passed away earlier this year. Acknowledged in the Premier's official address and present on the day was one of the founding members of the team of 3 who went to the United Nations in New York to deliver Niue's wishes to be a self-governing state in free association with New Zealand, the former Premier, Honourable Young Vivian, NDSC. The highlight of the day would have to be the conferring of the national awards. This, its second year of the Niue National Awards. This year, the nation's highest honour, the Niue Distinguished Service Cross, NDSC, was awarded to the long-serving member or the Assemblyman of Namukulu, Mr. Jack Willie Lipitoa, QSM. Mr. Jack Willie Lipitoa was a teacher until the early 80s. He first started teaching at Matalave and ended his teaching career teaching generations of Niuean students at Niue High School as their woodwork teacher. In 1987, he was elected the member of the village of Namukulu, replacing his predecessor, his brother, the late Dr. Enetama. In 1999, he was awarded the Queen's Service Medal and the New Zealand's Queen's Birthday Honours List. 88-year-old Jack Willie Lipitoa, QSM, NDSC, is married to his beautiful wife Moka and is in his 34th year, representing his constituency of Namukulu in the Niue Whanokepule. And other recipients of the Niue National Awards, 2 former long-serving teachers, were also recognised for their services to the public service and to Niue. Mrs. Sabina Awe Whakanaiki and Mrs. Janet Tasmania were both awarded the Niue Public Service Medals, NPSM. Mrs. Awe Whakanaiki began her career as a teacher trainee at the Niue Teachers Training Centre in 1965, when she was only 16 years old. It started a career as an educator that spanned more than 4 decades. She was instrumental in the decision of the government as well to amalgamate the primary schools to one Niue primary school when she was acting principal of Tuasea. Mrs. Whakanaiki is also an active member of the Hakupu village community in her various roles in the Ecclesia Niue's Federation of Christian Women. She's a lay preacher and a long-serving Sunday school teacher. She continues to share her knowledge and skills today as a daycare teacher for the village preschool. Also awarded the Niue Public Service Medal is Mrs. Janet Sipili Tasmania. In a career that spans over 40 years, Mrs. Janet Sipili Tasmania began work as a teacher at Halavai Primary School in 1977 after completing formal training at the Palmerston North Teachers College. Mrs. Tasmania's commitment and dedication to her chosen profession saw her progress from the classroom of a village school to eventually becoming the Director of Education. Her career path took her from the village classroom at Halavai to the side school and then to the principal of Niue Primary School. She was appointed Director of Education in 2010. During her career, she acquired a Bachelor of Education. Mrs. Tasmania retired from public service in 2013. And the 2 recipients of the Niue Community Service Star NCSS. Firstly, Mrs. Manasofai Sifahoi Viliamu Tālangi, over a number of years, has shown her commitment to her village, Alofi South, by being at the forefront in numerous community events and activities. After a spell in New Zealand in support of her family's academic pursuits, she returned to Niue with her family in 1990 and became an active member of the Ecclesia Kerisiano Alofi Church, where she is today the General Secretary of the Federation Council of Women and a lay preacher. She willingly shares her master weaving knowledge with the women of the village and is responsible for the revival of the Matua Manaia women's sporting activities. She is an orator by nature and loves to share the Aliutu history in chant, song and dance. Alentano Pugliosi is the other recipient of the Niue Community Service Star. He is one of the driving forces behind the promotion of local sports for many years. Mr. Alentano Pugliosi has been recognized as a sports administrator and has served as the chief demission for Team Niue at many regional and international events. His particular interest is in the field of weightlifting and powerlifting and has resulted in the elevation of Niue's profile in the sport. A number of athletes from the island have also been successful in the regional competitions because of his leadership. Mr. Alentano Pugliosi opened Tano's Gym in 1994, where he trained many of these athletes who went on to represent Niue nationally and internationally, including the first bodybuilding team to compete at the South Pacific Bodybuilding Championships. At the completion of the flag-raising ceremony, invited guests and the public stayed on to enjoy the meal and the entertainment and singing and performances from the national youth. The official flag-raising ceremony for the 47th anniversary of South Government finished on Tuesday night with dancing and singing at the Commercial Centre. And congratulations to all the recipients of the Niue National Awards. In other news, the first flight of the stranded passengers from Auckland arrived on Monday this week with 23 passengers on board. They are now being quarantined at the quarantine facility at the Scenic Matavai Apartments at Homofisi. To alleviate any unease and apprehension in the community, the government's public health specialist advisor, Dr. Colin Tukuitonga, says that even with the continuing cases of the Delta variant in Auckland, the risk of the virus reaching Niue is quite small. BCN News understands that there are people on the island still quite apprehensive with the resumption of the flights from Auckland, especially when the number of Delta variant cases of COVID-19 remain quite high in New Zealand. Today's count stands at 129, most of them 120 in Auckland. BCN News spoke to Dr. Colin Tukuitonga earlier this week, who said that there is very little risk of the virus reaching Niue with the several levels of protocols that the government has put in place for the returning passengers, of which he endorsed.
There's a small risk as of introduction, but I'd say it's highly, highly unlikely. I think Niue has put in place several layers of protection, which I endorse. I actually think to quarantine people with that kind of background for 14 days is quite demanding, given that they're, as I say, shown negative tests, they've been fully vaccinated and so on. So I think, it's actually more than adequate protection, I think.
Dr. Colin Tukuitonga, who is New Zealand's president of the New Zealand College of Public Health Medicine, was also officially appointed by the government last week as Niue's public health medicine specialist. He told BCN News that the fear over this virus is worldwide and the protocols the government has implemented are sufficient protection. Earlier this week, the Office of the Secretary to Government sent out an FAQ via email and on social media on what the new protocols are, including security protocols to be followed by the public. There is strictly no visiting at the MIQ facility at Homofisi, and the public are informed of the times when families can drop off their food at the MIQ at Homofisi in Tamukotonga. 150 children aged 12 to 15 were vaccinated earlier this month with their first dose of the Pfizer vaccine. The vaccines for the children were donated by the Government of New Zealand as part of their Pacific-wide COVID assistance to the Pacific Islands. Here's more on that story. According to the Health Department, 94% of the 160 children in this age group on the island took the first dose of the vaccine. This translates to 150 children and a few mothers who delivered their babies after the national vaccination program in July this year. Common Role Member of Parliament Honourable Terry Coe also took his first dose. The Minister of Health and Social Services Honourable Sauni Tongatule thanked the parents and the caregivers for consenting their children 12 to 15 years old to take the Pfizer vaccine. This was done during his speech at the Avasele Village Show Day earlier this month. The children will take their second dose of the vaccine on the 19th of November. Mrs. Fine Alec and her husband Rodney Alec retained their title as Farmers of the Year at this year's National Show Day. The Department of Agriculture's World Food Day program this year featured the cassava as the crop of focus for the competitions. Here's more from this year's National Show Day with Losana Sioniholo.
The World Food Day competition started with the judging of the cooked dishes made from the cassava held at the Fale Marquese, where the various dishes were displayed. Then on Saturday last week, the National Show Day was held at the Palese grounds, where Mrs. Finney and Rodney Alec proved yet again that they are the best farmers on the island in their fourth year of winning the competitions. In the other competitions, the crop of the year 2021 cassava most varieties. First equal goes to Sifi Mokalei of Tuapa and also Kingston Hopokingi of Tamakotonga with 7 varieties. Second placing goes to Tofu Puletama of Makefu with 6 varieties. Third by Tuineo of Makefu. For the heaviest cassava, first place goes to Hilingutu of Namukulu with the yellow cassava at 53.4 kilograms. Second placing for Lapoisi from Tamakotonga with the yellow cassava at 54.2 kilograms. Third placing for Ahulima from Mutalo for the yellow cassava at 33.1 kilograms. And for the best village displays for 2021, first placing Mutalo with 152 points, second Hakupu with 130 points, third placing Toi with 122 points, and fourth placing for Alufi Tokelau with 120 points. Best overall farmer for 2021, first placing Fine and Rodney Alec of Alufi North, second Tutawesi Akifilo of Motalo, and third placing Poinit Taufitu of Toi. And for the wheelbarrow floats, first placing goes to Sisikema Tukuniu of Alufi South, second to Leni Ioane of Mutalo, third Sapina Whakanaiki from Hakupu, and fourth placing to Joyce Talangi from Tuapa. There were also prizes given for cassava tableau sports and kids cassava games on the day. As always, the women in the beautiful blue hand-printed uniform impressed with their singing and dancing. The Chamber of Commerce tent was where the young entrepreneurs from Niue High School got to display and sell their products. The Young Entrepreneur Program is run by the Chamber of Commerce and sponsored by the Niue Development Bank. In less than 2 hours, all the products were sold out. Congratulations to the students with their business aspirations. The entertainment for the day was by the National Youth Group, led by the Niue Youth Council Vice President Tifanga Tupuiliu and Lavea Puheki.
The 47th celebration of self-government and the Constitution calendar of events was quite full this year, starting with the Avasele Village Show Day. Here are some of the highlights from the Avasele Village Show Day, the Aliutu Women's Fashion Show, and the Niue Powerlifting competitions. And also on Tuesday this week, the annual Vaka races, one of the highlights of the Constitution celebrations, organised by the Matako Vaka Association. William Pasisi is the island's top canoeist this year. And in the team relays, William Pasisi teamed up with Micah Fuhiniu to win the race as well in the relay. Here's more on the Vaka races with Losana Sioniholo.
27 competitors turned up at Sir Robert's Wharf early on Tuesday morning to compete in the Open Men's Vaka race and 11 teams for the Relay Vaka race. In the Open Men's competition at the finishing line, it was William Pasisi from Alofi South in first, Poyo Kesene from Tuapa in second place, and Jacob Laufuli from Avasele in third place. Of the competitors, 14-year-old Bob Lance Tukutama, who came 11th in the beating, more than half of the rest of the competition. In the Masters class were Langalavini from Alofi South, Hinemwa Makaia, Pilitalangi and Manisila Mokale from Avasele made it interesting for the over 60-year-old competitors. In the team relays, there were 11 teams competing, but William Pasisi teamed up with Micah Fuhiniu from Alofi South were just too good, taking first place ahead of father and daughter team with veteran canoeist 65-year-old Tomafai Fuhiniu and his youngest daughter Bella Fuhiniu, both teams from Alofi South. And in her first Vaka race competition, Roxy teamed up with Patrick Vagnofisi for Team Avasele, came third.
That's our news for tonight. I do apologize that News of the Week will not be on radio tomorrow, as I will be preparing to attend the USB graduation. The Broadcasting Corporation have 4 graduates who will walk across the stage tomorrow. Our General Manager, Trevor Siakia, attaining his Masters in Business Administration, and also our staff member, Reverend Scan Misiapo, also attaining his qualification, a Masters in Business Administration. And Mrs. Losana Sioniholo will walk across the stage to receive her certificate in the Vangahau Niue. And myself, I will be walking across the stage to receive my postgraduate diploma in governance. So I look forward to doing that tomorrow, and I wish you all the best tonight. We will be back on Tuesday next week with our bulletin in Vangahau Niue. Until then, good night, Munui Nipo.